You're tuned into the Growth Ceilings podcast, the show for builders, dreamers, and leaders ready to break limits and grow beyond what they thought possible.
Welcome to the Growth Ceilings podcast. I'm your host, Jim Lovelady, professional EOS implementer. EOS is the entrepreneurial operating system. The show is about real conversations with leaders who bring clarity to complex challenges and help organizations operate with confidence. Today, I'm joined by Maribeth Martorana. Maribeth is the CEO of Sapient Advisors and a seasoned data and artificial intelligence leader who helps organizations turn analytics and AI into measurable business outcomes. Her work focuses on moving leadership teams from experimentation to execution. Maribeth, welcome to the Growth Ceilings podcast.
Thank you, Jim, for having me. It's my honor to be here. Thank you.
Maribeth, why do so many AI initiatives stall before delivering real business value?
Actually, I think it really goes back to right now, people are getting caught up in what I call the AI swirl, and they're chasing the solution or the tools. And we really need to get back to basics. And it really goes all the way back to your business objective and your strategy, your goals, and then mapping that out and your use cases, classic product, and what the workflows are in your business. And then saying, okay, which ones are not only feasible, which are usable with the usability for your staff or your customers. And then the last thing would be, I call visibility, so that when you do this, you get some quick wins. And prioritizing that, and then having a roadmap, and then doing a pilot on the lowest hanging fruit, and iterating and learning from there. And then you also need to have your success metrics and like, what is the success look like? A lot of people go into these things and then they don't have that set up,
Right.
And also owners for this, and it just falls, right? So anytime you do anything with technology, it really goes back to the business. And that's what I think has been lacking these
You
days.
gave this a label, the AI swirl, and that's really interesting to me. Why don't you define a little further what that means?
I think for me and why I started Sapient, I just saw a lot of 18 months, a lot of chaos in the market, misinformation. I was very lucky in my career working for some large data providers and brands, and actually even started working with machine learning engineers over 20 years ago. So I just felt that being someone I could help these companies with their AI transformation. So what I call the swirl is there's all this noise, there's all this misinformation, people chasing all these tools. What's the latest fad? What is it? Hype up and down. And everyone needs to take a break or step back, look at it, digest it, figure out what works for them. I mean, it's hard to pinpoint where it's all going, but there's just this, what I call the swirl. And I tell people, stop chasing the tools and go back to the solutions.
Well, thank you for that definition. So that leads me to my next question. Where do leadership teams most often misjudge their AI readiness?
I think a lot of times what happens, in my opinion, what I see is there is a bit of the putting the cart before the horse. And what I mean by that is a lot of teams actually start with the external first, client-facing applications and what they're putting out to the market versus necessarily looking at the internal processes and building up that muscle. Right. So there's higher stakes with your customers than there is internally. And I'm not saying there couldn't be internal operations that affect your customers, but if you go and you start internally, you get the AI literacy and education up with your firm, you get your business strategy in place, you get some pilots started, getting them out to production, having a mechanism for governance, risk, and compliance, you're much better off. But unfortunately, everyone thinks, oh, I need to go put that chatbot on my website, or I need to go do this. And we've seen some big mistakes happen as a result in the news with companies and their brands, potential fines and whatnot. So I personally think the more prudent approach or pragmatic is starting the other way. But there are those who feel that they're missing out and they need to rush in on the client-facing side.
Talk a little further about the alignment between data, analytics, and leadership decision-making and why that's so critical.
Well, having worked in the data space for so long, and even before this whole latest, boom of AI, right? We're in the next phase. We're with the generative AI and the solutions because of all that. But even before this, data has not necessarily been treated as a strategic asset by firms. And there's a real mind shift by leaders and their firms. What I've seen is now that people are doing AI, oh yeah, we know what data is important. So now because there's an AI project, we're going to go do the data project. And you really everyone's like wants to go to the penthouse. They want to go to the AI penthouse. They want the shiny penthouse. But meanwhile, they haven't even built the basement with the data definitions, the catalog, the lineage, the ground floor. And they mistake that right there. And then the other thing is, again, I'm going to say it again. It goes back to that business objective and those use cases. You can't have the data strategy unless it's aligned with the business strategy. And then the analytics will all flow from that. But unless you've done that, it's going to fail for whatever you're going to be, your solutions are, whether internal or external.
Would you agree that many companies are unaware of the gold mine that they're sitting on top of that exists in their data today? That AI helps to basically sort and apply intelligence to that raw data, and now new discoveries are being made, whether it be service related, product related, efficiencies in processes for your business. To me, it just seems like we're in this very early stage of discovery of what businesses already have. And it's a matter of now using those existing assets that I think people are unaware of what that is.
Yeah,
That makes
that
sense?
is a great question. I'm so glad you asked that. As I was working on things, and I've had this theory for quite a while, since probably the last 8, 9 years, is, I came up with, structured data, right? In financial services, stock prices, financials, estimates, right? That was all, we used all that. But then there's this gold mine, and 80% of the data internally is unstructured. But now with these new technologies, we can actually unlock that. And my belief is that you can, at first, what you're doing, and again, going back to my internal AI point, is if you go and you unlock that data for whether it's going to be increasing revenues or efficiency for your company or mitigating risk, right? You could be an insurance company and you're going to use that for your underwriting, mitigate the risk in your insurance portfolio. You can do the unlock and you can actually supercharge your business based on the goals or cost or risk. That right there is going to generate or monetize your data internally. And then you can go and look at ways that, hey, how can I get to the next stage of data monetization? And there may be ways externally with products and things, or having come from information providers. There could even be ways to even package data and analytics back to customers or clients or sell that data, and then another monetization layer or the internal data. A good example would be, 10, 15 years ago, you had starting with MasterCard where they anonymized the purchasing data, right? And they actually take that data, which is customer data, but they aggregate it on industries and the spend. And you can actually take that information now and you use it in your analysis of what's happening in different industries or companies. So I think there's that too, at which a lot of companies, it would be new for them that they could actually monetize information they have in such a way and then make, revenue streams there as well.
So from your perch, what changes when AI strategy moves from IT led to business led?
Yeah. So first of all, I think the first thing that people need to understand is that it isn't an IT project. If you put it in IT, it's not going to succeed. Not that IT isn't talented in what they do and build, right? What it is it's a whole operating layer for your company, right? Think about it. It's everything is up for grabs. And with AI and where we are with AI now, it is a matter of changing your workflows, which is your processes and everything. So What I recently had a conversation, I'll just give you an example. What I mean with IT and not going to the business was a mid-market CIO spoke to at an investment bank, and he's like, "Yeah, we're doing a couple different things with AI. We're using Open AI. There's another tool called Rogo, and then they're doing some things with Microsoft Copilot. How's it going? I can't get the use cases from my executive team." Well, if their executive team doesn't understand what's possible, isn't literate, bring them up, have that business strategy, and then can think through potential use cases and match with the priorities of the company, it's not going to happen. Again, just like anything, it has to go back to the business and supporting it. Sitting over with the CIO, the CTO, the chief data officer, they need the business, and the business needs to sponsor it and take ownership so they drive it as well. And so the two are just going to go like this and nothing's gonna really happen. You're not really gonna transform things.
You mentioned the word hype a little while ago, and it
Mhm.
reminds me of these last couple of years with all of the hype in the media about how AI is going to take jobs away or displace human activity with AI. And my sense is that we really haven't seen that really take effect just yet. And I'm sure in your business, you come across those who are automatically resistant to change. In this case, with AI, they throw up all of the block walls to avoid engagement. How would you encourage either a CEO or a leadership team to overcome that?
One of the things that I have found one of the most effective, and when you think about it, and just even like us chatting, Jim, people are a big factor. People, culture, right? We don't like change, right? So the unlock with the leadership team and then their team below them, what I find is when we sit down with leadership teams and their team, we really start really not so much on the technology. We start with, okay, let's do an exercise of some questions that are very simple. And there's like three questions we ask. First, and we have them write their answers down and then we go around and have them share it to have a discussion. One, how are you using AI? Two, what challenges have you had using AI? Right. And then three, and this we wait for them to answer it later in the session, is how do you see AI using it in the future and what it could do for you? And what that does is we then ask in the room, and it's great when leadership especially shares something, whether they use it personal or we had somebody recently share like he uses it to write poetry, which none of his team knew, and what he finds good about it as a writing partner. Also, being the CEO, it's sometimes lonely making those decisions by himself, so he can ask, bounce ideas off. So it's almost like an advisor to him. They had done some experiments with AI and they had some issues and they shared that. And we also then get from that, we can answer why it's doing that and what it's doing, explaining it. But then we also then go through the use cases with them and everything. And then by the end of the workshop, they're like, okay, I understand what I'm using it for now, my challenges and why, and we get under the hood. And then they say, oh, what's possible for you to solve my pain points? And with my business, is it revenues? Again, is it cost? Is it risk mitigation? It's usually those three buckets. And there's a aha. And then as we explain it to them, it's not going to replace you, especially with these knowledge worker businesses, high touch. You can put your special sauce in it. And we also explain to them it's going to enable you to do more or do things with your business that you couldn't do. So the manual work, right? Maybe your team was doing or capturing the knowledge that you have and your team can go to these tools. That's going to make also there's the senior team members and there's junior team members who don't want to do the grunt work. They want to be using new technologies and they are lifted up as well. That's how we approach it in that very holistic view, even though we say we're doing AI transformation, we're very data and AI analytics heavy, but we have to bring that component in.
Excellent. I took a little bit out of what you said, and that's I'll summarize demonstrating outcomes to those who really are not yet fully understanding the capability or what it can produce. Demonstrating outcomes generally will get the process started or the adoption started, and demystifying it, removing the threat, and just demonstrating the value certainly can help teams move forward with this. And with a little help from someone like yourself, I'm sure can accelerate and expedite to where this can take a business. So
Yes.
go
Just
ahead.
one thing to add to that, if you don't mind. That is like the first step with the unlock. And what I find too for the adoption part, which you were starting to hit on, what we do like to do is we like to bring the team together to be part of building the solution, right? Having users being part of that is key. And we will actually do they're really design sprints, right? Getting in the room with the team, the cross functional team, bringing them together and going through a use case and then being able to imagine what it is, being part of that process, designing it like what they need, the requirements, all that with us. And then that team also is part of as we go into a POC or a pilot, they're part of giving the feedback, all of that. And they're part of the solution. And those users, right, requirements are captured, all that's captured to get your, your initial pilot, your MVP, and de-risk the project, all that information. And it's much more powerful having them as part of it than just handing them this tool. You have to use this. You have to do that. When they're part of that, they have some ownership. They're also under learning. So that's our approach. Then the next like layer in working with one.
Flip this around for a moment, and this comes to mind. And I'm hearing recent chatter about how the use of AI will dumb down society. In other words, we'll
Mhm.
become so reliant upon what it produces, the efficiencies that come with it, the capabilities that we're taking advantage of, that people will no longer invest in knowledge. They'll no longer invest in themselves to educate themselves. They'll just hit a button and say, "I'll let chat do this," or I'll use Gemini for that." Whatever all the different tools. And I'd like to get your perspective on that.
That's the wrong approach. So what I like seeing is people that what I say is you almost have like a mentorship approach, right? You have what you've done, and then you need to explain to someone who's using a tool or what you're doing with them, what it is, and you have to spend some time with them so that they capture the knowledge into the next generation in using these things, right? And then one needs to keep being, I always say a big thing we look for is being curious to learn. Well, you have to stay curious. So if you're just going to be the part to just push a button, well, that's where then this replaces you, right? So I'm very much in a human centric approach where it can come enable you, but having folks where you go and bring your, let's say, your juniors as part of the solution, helping with that, doing that work, that doesn't go away. If you just go and you say, I'm just going to go make everything automated and then they don't learn, well, if you don't have them doing a bit with financial modeling, they're not going to learn financial modeling. You need to go and still give them that foundation because then they need to understand what's going in underneath pushing that button so that they can then get better results.
So, how do you help organizations move from pilots to scalable execution? You talked a little earlier about some of the qualifiers, but help me understand how you physically make this work.
There's a couple of, you know, it depends upon how large the organization is. One, some organizations are smaller than others. One thing we really do try to do is one is we definitely bring in, and tell people do not be afraid, especially in the kind of industries we are, is bringing governance, risk, and compliance in very early. We even suggest for people that they bring legal and compliance or risk as part of your cross functional team. You go and you bring them in early, that is going to help you do a pilot that is going to turn into production more easily. That is a key thing we bring into the table. We also do a lot as we're testing it out, getting feedback and starting to, and because we've done the design sprints and all that and all this documentation, we also have then the MVP of then the next phase of work, and we can get that in to be built. So we work very quickly. First time I've ever did a design sprint, my days in corporate, large corporation. I mean, we were able to go from sprint to MVP within 5 months. So we move very fast, but we also bring everybody into the table very early. Also, we make sure there's a business sponsor, there's accountability, there's success metrics so we can decide what's working or not. And also that governance piece is key. I find if you don't do that, the pilots are not moving into production.
Sapient Advisors.
Yeah. Sapient, we formed the firm about 18 months ago. And like I mentioned, I saw a lot of AI chaos and swirl. So having worked building enterprise and data solutions for capital markets for the last 30 years, our core team, we actually do AI transformation for mid-market financial services, insurance, and commercial real estate. We can design, build, implement, and advise anywhere in your journey. And then what we've done is since we've worked so much in not only in large corporates, but in startups and advising them, we have a whole partnership ecosystem where we vet best in class technology for regulated industries so that we're bringing in the right solutions for you. And then AI takes a village, and we have partners, even like a data and AI training company, change management, so that if there's something you need, we can bring the right people in.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. So I'll get you out of here on this last question. What advice would you give a CEO who feels pressure to do something with AI but lacks clarity?
What I tell them to do is take a step back, go and look at your business, look at what's happening in the market. I also will give them certain tools or things that I like to read. One of my favorite podcasts is the AI Daily Brief, which I think is 15, 20 minutes every day. What's happening with a business perspective of the future of work, not just the technology and what it means so that you can apply it. And then I tell people to get started with something like that to help them, something that's not swirl and hype.
All right, Maribeth, this has been a very strong conversation. You've shown how clarity, discipline, and execution can turn AI from an experiment into a real growth driver. Your perspective helps leaders move past hype and focus on what actually works. For listeners who want to learn more, you can connect with Maribeth on LinkedIn and explore her work at Sapient Advisors. Thank you for joining me today, and thanks to everyone listening for being a part of the Growth Ceilings community. Until next time, keep growing, keep leading, and keep breaking through. Thank you.
You've been watching the Growth Ceilings podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who's ready to grow.